My name is Sarah Bennett. I'm 32 years old, and for most of my life, I believed that if I stayed quiet, kept the peace, and smiled through discomfort, things would eventually balance out. That family loyalty meant swallowing small humiliations. That love sometimes came wrapped in silence. I was wrong. The afternoon it happened didn't feel important at first. It was one of those forced family gatherings that show up on your calendar with vague promises of togetherness and unspoken expectations. My parents' house smelled like reheated lasagna and lemon cleaner. The windows were open even though it was cold because my mother believed fresh air fixed tension. My daughter Leela was 3, just barely. She had soft curls that never stayed brushed and a habit of holding things too tightly, like she was afraid they might disappear if she loosened her grip. That day, she wore a yellow sweater with tiny stitched daisies, one she picked herself because flowers make people nicer. I should have known better. We arrived with a small gift bag in hand, crayons, a book, and a stuffed rabbit Leela had insisted on bringing for sharing. My brother Evan was already there, with his wife Claire, sitting at the dining table, scrolling on their phones like guests waiting for service. Evan barely looked up when we walked in. "Hey," he said, flat, eyes still down. Claire smiled, but it was the kind that didn't reach her eyes. Polite, evaluating. My daughter Leela tugged on my sleeve. "Mama, can I show Uncle Evan my bunny?" "Of course," I said. She walked over slowly, holding the rabbit out like an offering. Evan glanced at it, then at her. "That thing's filthy." Leela froze. "It's her favorite," I said, gently. "Yeah, well," he shrugged. "Kids get attached to junk." I swallowed it, like always. We sat in the living room while my parents moved around the kitchen, pretending nothing felt off. My dad talked about work. My mom fussed over napkins. Everyone avoided eye contact in that practiced way families develop when there's a hierarchy and you're not at the top of it. After lunch, my mom clapped her hands together. "All right," she said, "we have something for Leela." Leela's face lit up instantly. She loved surprises. She loved believing people were kind. Claire stood and walked toward the hallway, returning with a small gift box, pink wrapping paper, slightly crushed at the corners. "For you," she said, handing it to Leela. Leela looked up at me, eyes wide. "Mama?" "It's okay. You can open it." She tore the paper carefully, tongue peeking out in concentration. Inside was a doll. At first glance, it looked normal. Plastic hair, painted eyes, cheap fabric dress, the kind you find at a discount store near the checkout line. Then Leela picked it up. One of the doll's arms was missing. Not snapped off cleanly, jagged, broken plastic, the joint exposed. Leela stared at it. She turned it over slowly, like maybe she'd misunderstood what she was seeing. "Where's her arm?" she asked quietly. No one answered. Then Evan laughed. Not a chuckle, not a nervous sound, a full laugh. "They only had the busted one. Figured she wouldn't notice." Claire smirked. Actually smirked. "Kids don't care," she said. "She's 3. Leela's bottom lip trembled. She didn't cry, she just looked confused, like she'd been handed something wrong and didn't know how to say it without sounding ungrateful. I felt something tighten in my chest. "She notices," I said. Evan leaned back in his chair. "Relax, it's a toy." "It's broken," I said. "So? Life's broken." My mother cleared her throat. "Sarah, don't make this a thing." That sentence, that exact sentence, I'd heard it my whole life. Don't make this a thing. Leela held the doll tighter, fingers pressing into the cracked plastic. "Can we fix her?" she whispered. Evan snorted. "With what? Glue?" Claire laughed again. "Oh my God, she thinks it's real." Something shifted in me then. Not anger, not yet. Something colder, sharper. I knelt down in front of Leela and brushed her hair back. "It's okay," I said softly. "You didn't do anything wrong." She nodded, like she wasn't entirely convinced. My dad finally spoke. "Let it go, Sarah, it's just a doll." I stood up. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I didn't demand an apology. I took the doll gently from Leela's hands, placed it back in the box, and set it on the table. "Thank you for the gift," I said calmly. Evan raised an eyebrow. "You're welcome." Leela tugged my sleeve again. "Mama, can we go home?" "Yes," I said. My mom frowned. "Already?" "Yes." I grabbed our coats, lifted Leela into my arms, and walked without another word. No slammed doors, no dramatic exit, just silence. In the car, Leela stared out the window. "Did I do something bad?" she asked. "No," I said. "You were perfect." "Then why did they laugh?" I didn't answer right away. Because how do you explain cruelty to someone who still believes flowers make people nicer? That night, after Leela fell asleep clutching her stuffed rabbit, I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the wall. Memories surfaced. Not dramatic ones, small ones. Evan borrowing money and never paying it back, family dinners where my opinions were dismissed, Claire's comments about my job not being real work, my parents' constant insistence that I was too sensitive. I'd paid for Evan's phone bill once when he was between jobs, covered a vacation deposit for my parents during a tight month, bought gifts that were never reciprocated, and I'd done it quietly. That morning, my phone buzzed. A message from my mom. "You embarrassed your brother. You could have handled it better." I stared at the screen. Then another text. "It was just a joke, don't be dramatic." I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my laptop. There was something my parents had forgotten, something they'd always assumed would stay buried under my silence. 3 years ago, when my dad's small contracting business was failing, I'd stepped in, not as an employee, as a saver. I'd loaned them $24,000. No contract, just trust. They'd promised to pay it back. They never did. And my name was still on more paperwork than they realized. That morning, while Leela watched cartoons, I made calls. Not angry calls, professional ones. By noon, I'd frozen 2 shared accounts. By 3 p.m., I'd emailed the accountant. By evening, I'd stepped away from the business entirely. I didn't drain anything. I just stopped protecting it. At 7:48 p.m., Evan called. I let it ring. At 8:01 p.m., my dad texted, "We need to talk, now." I looked at Leela, coloring at the table, humming to herself. I typed back one sentence. "Don't involve my child again." The typing bubble appeared, then disappeared. That night, I slept deeply for the first time in years. I didn't know yet how loud the fallout would be. I only knew one thing. I hadn't said a word, and somehow everything had already started to crack. I didn't hear from anyone the next morning. That silence felt heavier than shouting ever could. It was the kind of quiet that meant people were talking, just not to me. Phone calls behind closed doors, whispered versions of events where I was already painted as the villain. I made Leela pancakes. She sat at the table swinging her legs, syrup on her fingers, telling me the doll at daycare had 2 arms and good manners. I smiled, but my chest ached in that dull, familiar way, the ache of realizing how early children learn disappointment from adults. At 9:13 a.m., my dad showed up at my door. No call, no warning. I watched him through the peephole for a full 10 seconds before opening it. He looked older than he had a week ago. Not fragile, just caught off guard, like someone who expected control and found none. "Can I come in?" he asked. I stepped aside. He walked in slowly, glancing around my apartment like he was seeing it for the first time, like it wasn't just temporary or not quite enough anymore. "You froze the accounts," he said. "Yes. That wasn't your place." I folded my arms. It was my name. He sighed. "You're punishing all of us over a toy." I didn't raise my voice. I'm protecting my child. That doll didn't mean anything. It meant something to her. She's scree, and already learning who laughs when she's hurt. He looked away. I waited. Finally, he said, "Your mother's beside herself." I nodded. She told me I embarrassed Evan. He felt attacked. I laughed softly. That surprised both of us. Evan laughed at a broken toy given to a toddler, I said. If he felt attacked, it's because the truth finally landed. Dad's jaw tightened. You've always been dramatic. No, I've always been quiet. There's a difference. He sat down heavily on the couch. You don't understand what you're doing, pulling away like this. It affects everyone. Yes, that's the point. He stared at me. What do you want? That question, so revealing, as if everything I'd ever done had been part of some negotiation I wasn't aware of. I want my daughter treated with basic respect, and I want my financial ties cleanly resolved. His head snapped up. You're going to demand repayment now? I'm going to document reality. What happens after that is up to you. He stood. You're not you. I met his eyes. You're right. This is who I should have been years ago. He left without another word. That afternoon, Evan posted a photo online, a vague caption, something about people who play victim and family loyalty. The comments filled with supportive friends who'd only heard his version. Claire liked every one. I didn't respond. Instead, I met with a lawyer. Not aggressive, not threatening, just prepared. 2 days later, the accountant called my parents. 3 days later, Evan showed up. This time, he wasn't smiling. He stood in my doorway, arms crossed. What the hell is wrong with you? Hello, Evan. You think you can just cut us off? I didn't cut anyone off. I stepped back. You're ruining Dad's business. I stopped holding it together. He scoffed. Over a broken doll. No, I said calmly, over years of disrespect. The doll was just the moment you didn't bother hiding it. He leaned in. You're acting like you're better than us. No, I'm acting like I matter. That stunned him more than yelling ever could. You always needed approval, he said. This is pathetic. I smiled, not cruelly, just knowingly. You're right, I did. Then I closed the door. That night, my mother called. She cried, not about Leela, about embarrassment, about stress, about how neighbors were asking questions, about how Evan was angry, about how this wasn't how families behaved. I listened. Then I said, you never defended her. Silence. She's a baby, my mom whispered. She's my baby, and you laughed. I didn't laugh. You didn't stop it. Another silence. We did our best, she said weakly. No, I said gently. You did what was easiest. A week passed, then another. The business struggled without my quiet support. Bills surfaced, old debts demanded attention, the cushion I'd provided disappeared. Evan's tone changed. Claire stopped posting. My parents stopped calling. I focused on Leela. We donated the broken doll. We picked out a new one together, one with bendable arms and painted freckles. Leela named her Hope. Because she stays, Leela said. One afternoon, my dad asked to meet. Neutral place, coffee shop. He looked tired. We're selling the truck, he said. I nodded. Evan's moving, he added. I nodded again. You really won't help, he asked. I will, if the terms are clear, if my child is respected, if I'm not expected to disappear when it's convenient. He stared at his coffee. You changed, he said. Yes, I replied. I healed. That was the last conversation we had that mattered. Months later, at a family gathering I didn't attend, someone asked where I was. My mom said, she's busy. Not she's dramatic, not she's selfish, just busy. And for the first time, that felt like enough. Leela started preschool. One day she came home smiling. Mama, she said, a boy broke his toy and cried. I gave him hope. I knelt down. Why? She shrugged. Because people shouldn't laugh when things break. I hugged her. Hard. That night, as I tucked her in, she asked, Mama, are we still family? Yes, I said. Just a smaller one. She smiled. Smaller is safer. She was right.
I never raised my voice. I never demanded revenge. I didn't say a word that afternoon. I just stopped absorbing the damage meant for others. And somehow that was louder than anything I